Today what we're going to look at is the US M110 self-propelled howitzer. This is the 8-inch or the 203mm variant. With this vehicle and along with the M107, the hull was exactly the same, the gun mount was the same, it was only the guns that different. So in the late 50s, the Americans wanted to upgrade a lot of their equipment, especially after Korea. That was also dating back to World War II. So the Pacific Car and Foundry come up with a couple of prototypes, which end up being the M107 and the M110. From there, went into further development, and FMC, who also built the M113 platform, built the first batch of these in 1962, and it was then issued to the American Army in 1963, and then followed on into the US Marines. So this is fitted with the 8V71T supercharged engine, diesel engine. So this can propel this vehicle at about 55 kilometres an hour. So it is highly mobile. Has what you probably call a semi-automatic transmission, the Allison transmission. The driver can pre-select what gear he wants to be in, so he's got 4 forward and 2 reverse gears. The running gear is a little bit different to the way other vehicles are designed. So this has no idler wheel, it has no guide rollers. The track just sits on the road wheels themselves. Now it's on torsion bar suspension, but an interesting component of this suspension is when we go into the firing position, when they're ready to fire, the driver with inside his driver's compartment is a hydraulic lockout switch. So what this does is actually locks the suspension in place, so when the gun fires, the vehicle doesn't rock as it would on normal suspension. We also have the spade. So as it comes down, what he does get the driver to do is to reverse the vehicle, go forward again, and he digs it in gradually. So in the manual, it actually says that the top of the spade shouldn't be any higher than the hub and no lower than the road wheel itself. So that gives us our stable platform to be able to shoot, as well as the hydraulic lockout system for the running gear. Crew chief, or the section leader for the gun emplacement, his job with the driver is he pulls out this handle here, which is for the blade, and to lower it, he pushes clockwise, and to lift it, he lifts it anti-clockwise, and this emplaces the blade or the spade into the ground. Has a couple of other different alternate functions. So when we're traveling, 2 charge bags are tied onto the back of the spade here. We also have 2 spade boxes. Now within these spade boxes, we also have a crew shelter. So in inclement weather, a shelter can be fitted above the gun so the crew can still fire, but not get covered in snow or rain. Now there's one located either side, but we have an ammunition holder. So whilst we're travelling, the vehicle carries 2 rounds on board. So when the spade comes down, the round is now accessible, and we can obviously use it with our loader rammer as well. What we're going to look at now is the business end of this platform. So when they designed this, there was an existing 8-inch howitzer, which was the 8-inch M1. When they put this on, they changed the name of it in 1962 to the M115 8-inch howitzer. They then changed the name again because they increased the length of the gun. So the A1 went to 37 calibers long, and when we get to A2, we increase it to about 40.5 calibers long and include the muzzle brake as well. So now this is known as the M201A. A lot of the M107s were also later on converted to M110s. Now this gun has a ranging distance or a planning distance anywhere from about 16 kilometres right up to about 25 kilometres using a standard HE round, the M106. When we go into firing supercharged round or the rocket assist round, we can now go out to 30 kilometres. Now with the different types of rounds that we use on this particular gun, they bracket the charges into what they call zones. So zone 1 to 6 will give us a range from that 16 kilometre mark. Once we start getting into zone 7 and 8, we're increasing our distance slightly. Once we get to zone 9, we're going to a charge bag that's some 32 inches long, and that's where we can use our HE rocket assist out to 30 kilometres distance. Now this gun has an elevation range from about -2 degrees right up to +65. It's not a direct fire weapon as such, but this gun can be used if required in a direct fire role. With its range of deflection, so left and right, it has 30 degrees left and right, so it's all hydraulically powered. This gun can shoot at moving targets. So in the manual it says if the target is moving at 16 kilometres or less, they give it a 5mm aim off, and if it's above 16 kilometres now, they give it a 10mm aim off. Deflection is a terminology that the US used. Deflection is what we call azimuth or line. To fire a gun, you both need line and elevation to get you onto target. When you fire, you see where your first round's landed, and this is where FOs come into it as well, forward observers. You take out your line correction, or as they call it, deflection. You take that out first, and then you bracket the target with elevation. So this position that I'm currently sitting in now is the main gunner's position. Primary role is to lay the gun on for deflection. A couple of ways he can do this is we can use a device called a collimator. So this is an optical instrument that we'll place out the front of the vehicle anywhere between 5 to 12 metres away, and this gives us an optical reference point to lay the gun on for deflection or line. Using the gun itself, it is a two-person, two-control system. The gunner lays on for deflection, the assistant gunner lays on for elevation. The gunner has a telescopic mount, the M137, which is this component here, and above that, which is missing at the moment, is his panoramic telescope, the M115 telescope. So he uses this to lay onto the collimator. If they don't have that, they can use a gun aiming post. First one sits out at about 50 metres, which is a half-size post. The furthest one sits out at 100 metres. Once he's got that alignment, he's got that zero for deflection, and that way he can do his left and right traverse as required. This crew position is the assistant gunner's position. His primary job is to lay the gun on for elevation. So all his controls, the same as the gunner, are all hydraulic. He has his M15 quadrant. Above that sits a M139 direct fire telescope. When we're in the travelling mode, we have two of the loaders sitting here. The position that I was in was the assistant gunner. My first position was the gunner, and right up the front we have the driver. So we have a crew of 5 that travels on the vehicle whilst it's mobile. The rest of the crew travel in an M113, also assisted by an M548, the track load carrier, which carries the extra ammunition for this vehicle. Some references also say there's a crew of 13, but I can't sort of point out where that extra manpower comes from. But for the vehicle itself, in the manual it does say that it is a crew of 12. Come into service 1963, and it went out of service in the US Army in 1994. So this saw service in Vietnam, both variants, the M107-175 and the M110. It also saw service in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. The vehicle was also built under licence by the Japanese Army as well. So if you want to have a ride on this vehicle, get online and purchase your tickets for AusArmorFest 2023.